Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Planning Committee this evening. Before we start, I have some extremely sad news for everyone. This morning we lost our valued colleague, Councillor Christine Millier, and I would like you all to stand for 1 minute's silence before the meeting commences. Thank you. Thanks very much for that, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Okay, thanks for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee, Thursday the 9th of September 2021. I'm Councillor Caleb Tomlinson. I represent Bamber West Ward and I'm the chair of the committee. Councillor Mel Donoghue is the vice chair. This meeting is being recorded and the stream is on YouTube live. The web address for this is displayed on the agenda for the meeting. If you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public who was registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of 4 minutes. I'll let you know when your time is up and then you need to wind up. After each report has been presented, any speakers have made their representations, I will bring the application into committee. Committee members wish to speak on an item, you should indicate and I will invite you in order. Voting will be undertaken by roll call and I will read out your names alphabetically to vote on each item. The outcome of the vote will be confirmed by our legal officer, Geordie, once complete. I'll begin with some housekeeping. If you've got mobiles, can you put them on silent, please? We're not expecting any fire alarms this evening, so if the alarm does go off, there'll be a fire somewhere. So just follow me out of that left-hand door as quickly as you can. Right, could you ensure you wear a face mask when you're moving around the building? Sanitisers are available if you wish to use them. At the end of the meeting, I'll ask you to leave in individual groups to avoid overcrowding. If I can now ask everyone to introduce themselves, we will start with Councillor Yates.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Barry Yates, representing residents of South Ribble on the Planning Committee.
Hi, I'm Councillor Mal Donoghue and I represent Seven Stars.
I'm Councillor Gareth Watson and I represent Camp Green and Gregson Lane.
Councillor James Flannery, represent Middlefirth, Penwitham.
Councillor Colin Sharples, representing Gurney Bridge Ward.
Councillor Mary Green, representing Moss Side and Midge Hall.
Chris Lomax, Wantley Dale East.
Good evening, Councillor John Hesketh. I represent Longton and Hutton West.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Harry Hancock and I represent Broad Oak Ward, Penwitham.
Good evening, Councillor Phil Smith, representing New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor Caroline Moon and I represent Buckshaw and Worden.
And our officers, starting with Jonathan Noel, please.
Jonathan Noel, Director of Planning and Property.
Good evening, Stephen Brown, Head of Development Management.
Good evening, Chris Sowerby, Planning Officer.
Good evening, Janice Crook, Planning Officer. Good evening, Jodie Ingram, solicitor.
Charlotte Lynch, Democratic Services Officer.
Right, thanks very much for that. Do we have apology? Well, I've received an apology at 4:30 this afternoon. Councillor Adams has been called into the COVID ward as a matter of urgency, so we won't be here tonight. Any other apologies?
None, Chair.
Okay, do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Watson.
On agenda item 8, is it? Sorry, my brain's gone. Bellis Way. Basically, the view out of my bedroom window, I've just moved house, is the entrance to this development. I've no particular opinion on it one way or another. I don't think I'm prejudiced against it, but I just wanted to make sure I raised it. So if there is an issue. Okay, Geordie, have you noted that? Councillor Watson can see through this window. Yeah.
Noted.
Okay, I have the minutes of the last meeting in front of me, which I just need a proposer. Straight in.
I'll propose to accept them.
Thank you. Seconder?
I'll second those, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sharples. There's quite a few of you who can't actually vote on this. So can I take it as a block vote? Are we all happy with the minutes of the last meeting, the people who were here? Yes?
Yes, Chair.
Yes? Okay, I'll sign those off then. Thank you. Okay, Stephen, do we have any appeal decisions?
We don't, Chair, on this occasion, thanks.
No appeal decisions. Great. Okay, item number 6 this evening is land to the east of Reynard Close in Longton. And Chris, would you like to present the report?
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to a 1.5 hectare parcel of land which comprises of the central section of the allocated housing site V in the South Ribble Local Plan. Committee will recall that in April a scheme for 33 residential units was considered, with the application being deferred to allow the applicant to provide revised drawings addressing design issues raised by the Planning Committee. This is the scheme that was previously considered back in April. Amended plans have since been provided, which reduces the number of residential units to 14 and omits all apartments. This has allowed greater spatial separation distances to neighbours. Minimal public open space is proposed on site at the heads of the cul-de-sac, but an off-site contribution in excess of £22,000 towards the upgrade of Longton playing fields and School Lane playground is to be secured. County Highways have raised no objections to the proposal, confirming that the roads would remain unadopted until such a time that Reynard Close itself is adopted. 3 house type variations are proposed, all detached with accommodation within the roof space. Dwellings are up to 10 metres in height, with the adjacent street comprising of properties of 2 and 3 stories. This slide demonstrates one of the proposed garage types, which is 3 metres to the eaves and 6.2 metres to the ridge. This is the existing street scene of large 2 and 3 story units in the surrounding locality. And I'm not sure where the other 2 slides have gone. We'll go straight to the final one. There are no objections from any statutory consultees. For these reasons and those contained in the report, it is recommended that members be minded to approve the application and that the decision be delegated to the Chair and Vice Chair upon the successful completion of a legal agreement to secure the required off-site public open space contribution. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your report, Chris. Right, we have 3 members of the public wishing to speak in objection to this application. The first one I've got on my list is Mr. David Harrison, who's joining us via Teams because a member of his family has tested positive for COVID. So first and foremost, Mr. Harrison, thank you for not attending in person. You now have 4 minutes to present your objections. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and councillors. Firstly, my condolences to you all and to the family of Councillor Amelia. I'm David Harrison. I'm a resident of Auburn Avenue in Longton. I'd like to reiterate on behalf of all residents that we support the development of this site to increase the housing stock and prosperity of our village. You will recall the previous application for 33 units was deferred at the April committee meeting. And as residents, we were delighted with the level of care and attention that you as our councillors gave to the previous application. There can be no doubt of the clear guidance you gave to both the applicant and residents. Chair, you said that evening, I'd like a much nicer, better thought out plan to come to us with not as much overbearing for the existing residents. I am so disappointed to be objecting to this application tonight. I'd like to spend the next 3 minutes talking about three things. First, the lack of meaningful consultation. The design not in keeping with neighbouring properties. During the April committee meeting, Councillor Flannery said, a bit of advice for the applicant, if you're going to come and develop in the communities of South Ribble, please do everything you can to work with the residents. You come and go, but the residents stay there. A little bit of time and effort to go into that partnership would serve everyone. Despite the committee meeting being on the 1st of April and this application being submitted 3 months later in late June, the agent delivered a letter to residents 10 days after this application was made. If respecting the advice of committee members and if consultation is important to the applicant, why couldn't consultation have happened during that 3-month period? Following receipt of the agent's letter, a group of residents met with Mr. Garner, the agent. Mr. Garner asked us not to share our group objection letter with the planning officer to give the applicant time to address our concerns. We had hope. 3 days after this meeting, Mr. Garner advised of a minor change to the plans. As a group of residents responded within a week with comments, feeling we were finally in consultation. Unfortunately, 2 weeks of radio silence was ended with Mr. Garner informing us that there would be no further revisions. Congratulations to the developer for ticking the box of consultation, but I suggest this wasn't the consultation any of us would expect. Let me turn now to the overbearing. Last time, Councillor Wasserton, you were concerned that 3-storey properties along the boundary weren't in keeping and were potentially overbearing to the existing properties. Unfortunately, this application now has 7 properties along the same boundary, with each being the same height as the previous block of flats. The 3-storey properties are not the problem. These exist in the existing development. However, as Councillor Smith observed, the position and orientation of these existing 3-storey properties do not overlook neighbouring properties and have a significant gap between houses. Neither of these precedents are met with this new design. Coming finally to the design, Mr. Garner said himself when supporting the previous application, a variety of properties are proposed in the layout to avoid uniformity and to add interest to the development and to reflect the similar mix of heights of nearby houses. We believe this is missing from this design. We recognise the modern urban style and notice similar local development in Whitestake. However, this is on a brownfield site and is not neighbouring existing properties. Councillor Hesketh put it well. South Ribble have always prided ourselves in providing sympathetic additions to existing houses. In this case, we aren't doing that. We would strongly argue the current design doesn't either. We are not objecting glibly. This is not NIMBYism. Our objection letter is constructive and we offer to work with the applicant to get to a mutually satisfactory outcome. We remain of the opinion there is a scheme that works, is acceptable to local residents and will make a return. Unfortunately, this is not it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harrison. Do we have a Mr. Tim Chetwood? Okay, if you would like to make your representations, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and councillors. My name is Tim Chetwood. I'm a chartered surveyor and lived in Longton for over 15 years. I work as a property developer and understand from first-hand experience the pressure to deliver a return on investment. Without explanation, the applicant has made a complete about turn, having previously presented this site for the development of 33 dwellings to now 14 number 6 or 7 bed huge dwellings. Please note the plans incorrectly reference properties as having 5 and 6 bedrooms. However, the largest room on the 3rd floor of each property is described as a family room rather than bedroom. In reality, you can call a room whatever you like. Given they're the biggest rooms on the floor, they will inevitably become bedrooms and therefore should be classed as such. Each property is comparable in scale and massing, to the block of flats previously submitted and rejected by this committee. The design and access statement submitted states, and I quote, "Key design issues have been addressed by this layout," and describes the development as sympathetic in scale, and noting that it relates in height to the existing surrounding buildings. In my opinion, this is simply not the case. What is clear is that the developer is operating in the extremes of that could feasibly fit onto the site. The extremes being where, if approved, profit will be maximised. When I met with the agent, I explained this development should not be this challenging. Indeed, this were not the case when Red Road developed the last phase of this part of Longton. There are established precedents which had been ignored in favour of incorporating 14 of the biggest dwellings possible. Executive properties simply don't need to have 6 or 7 bedrooms or be 3 stories. Furthermore, they certainly don't need to have garages with a ridge over a metre higher than the eaves of the adjacent property. They simply should be the same size as the garages adjacent with a hipped roof. Please note, I've personally checked the accuracy of parameter plans submitted as part of the application and found the distance stated between 1 and 2 Reynard Close is over a metre less than distance stated on the drawing. Clearly this is concerning and leads me to question the accuracy of the distances between the existing and proposed dwellings. You may recall similar concerns were raised in this respect at the previous application committee in April. I expect we'll hear from the developer the application is policy compliant. With respect, the last application allegedly was. Unfortunately, in my opinion, it's not that black and white. Were this the case, there'd be no need for a committee or for me to be here this evening. We may also hear about the level of support for the application. Please note the officer report does not accurately represent the level of objection to this application. 43 local residents have signed 2 letters of objection. Much of the support posted on the council portal, only days after it was uploaded, has been from people outside of South Ribble. At this point, the neighbours had not even received a letter about the application. I would also like to question the scrutiny under which the application has been placed. In my opinion, the report has not grasped the scale and massing of the proposed dwellings, their visual impact, or visual intrusion on existing residents. From my experience, responsible developers consult their neighbours prior to submission and carefully consider the appropriateness of the proposed works, assessing factors such as appearance, scale, density, massing and proximity to other dwellings. To simply tick the policy compliance box, in my opinion, is not enough, especially what can only be described as a tokenist attempt at public consultation. My challenge for the councillors this evening is, do you consider a group of 14 of the largest 3-storey properties in South Ribble that would dwarf their neighbours an appropriate extension to a village? Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Chetwood. Just so committee are well aware, we didn't reject this application in April, we deferred it. Okay, we're all right. Great. Do we have Leah Giluli?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and councillors. My name is Dr. Leah Giluli. I live at 2 Reynard Close. I'll start by expressing my disappointment that once again I find myself speaking to you in objection to yet another ill-conceived plan. This needn't have been the case. In the Planning Committee meeting on the 1st of April, I'm sure you'll all agree there was no support for the proposed block of flats on this site due to their size, massing, scale and overbearing nature relative to neighbouring properties. Mr. Harrison's already referenced your comments from last time, Councillor Watson and Mr. Chairman, about the need to reduce overbearing. Sadly, on this basis, these new plans are much, much worse. In fact, instead of one large 3-storey block of flats on the boundary, we now have 7 buildings of broadly the same height as the flats, directly abutting existing homes. I don't doubt the developer or his agent will say the design is policy compliant, but there is a difference between compliant and a design that's well thought through and sympathetic to neighbouring properties. If we take the plot directly abutting our house as an example, we have a proposed house type that sits approximately a metre taller than us at what can only be described as scraping the minimum required distance away. By scraping that bare required distance, I mean under this proposed plan, we will have a house which dwarfs ours in size and scale, a mere 21.74 metres away from us. The developers are starting here with a blank canvas, and yet they've chosen to place such huge houses along the boundary so close to existing properties. There were other options to vary the house types and the heights. For example, placing houses of a similar scale to ours along that boundary and using their open boundaries for the large, imposing properties that no doubt maximise their yield. Speaking of overbearing and boundaries, this brings me to my next point, which is the size of the garages. The garages are over 6 metres high, as Mr. Chetwood mentioned. Putting that into perspective, that's a metre higher than the eaves of our house. Not only that, but the garages have Velux windows in the roof spaces. Whatever the developer might protest, if these garages are not designed in such a way as to be turned into habitable buildings, why on earth do they need to be over 6 metres tall? The garages at 35 square metres in size, over 6 metres in height, are like a small house. And under this proposal, we'll have that a matter of a few metres away from our garden. The loss of light and amenity, therefore, to our garden is colossal and represents to me some of the clearest evidence yet of the overbearing nature of this proposed development on neighbouring properties. Due to their height, scale and massing, I therefore firmly believe the proposed properties are in contravention of policy G17 of the local plan. Moving on to the proposed self-build nature of the site, here we're talking about 14 separate self-builds, which to me doesn't seem in the spirit of government initiatives to support individual self-builds. Rather, it seems a cynical attempt to circumvent the payment of the community infrastructure levy. Allowing 14 self-builds in this one location would mean next to no contribution being made to local infrastructure. By my reckoning, were this not a self-build development, it would incur a SIL of £500,000, yet the planning officer's report suggests a contribution of a mere £22,500. Indeed, the local plan makes specific reference to development on this site, saying it would be expected to contribute towards local infrastructure schemes. The proposed development doesn't in any way meet this condition and so won't serve the needs of South Ribble residents. In conclusion then, we call on you to reject this proposal based on the size, massing, scale and overbearing nature of the properties and the ill-conceived plan to turn it into a series of self-build projects which will cause long-term disruption to residents while making next to no contribution to local infrastructure. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Galuli. Nothing to add? No. Okay, local ward councillors not wishing to speak on? No, okay. Do we have the applicant?
You do? Yeah.
Okay, if you'd like to make your presentation, 4 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Shall I go first as the agent for the scheme?
Well, you're the applicant, you can go first.
I'm the agent. My client.
Sorry, you're the agent. Well, whichever.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll crack on. My name is Phil Garner, Director of Garner Town Planning, and I'm addressing you this evening on behalf of the applicant for this scheme, Longton Developments. My client, Mr. David Cunningham, you can see, is also attending and will be pleased to answer any later questions you may have regarding specific details of the scheme. As the officer said, the last time this proposal came before you at the committee on the 1st of April, the development was for 33 dwellings comprised of a variety of apartments and houses. Notwithstanding the officer recommendation to grant permission on the basis that the original scheme complied with the relevant standards, my client and I listened to the debate and took on board the strength of feeling of local residents and understood the councillors resolving to defer the application to allow for it to be redesigned. The application before you tonight is therefore very different to the original, proposing only 14 detached houses of a larger executive style, which allows for a more open layout and has the footprints of the houses set even further away from the properties which abut the western boundary of the site. Having met with the representatives of local residents on the 13th of July, the amended scheme was revised further to provide a 2-storey appearance for the rear elevations of the houses along the western boundary, with the original rear dormers replaced by roof lights to preclude any downward overlooking, which was a concern. The height of these plots was also reduced, and the separation distances between the proposed western houses and those existing to the rear remains well in excess of the council standards. I'm mindful, as we've heard, that local residents remain keen on additional amendments being made to the revised scheme. However, we consider that the changes made after discussions are sufficient Given that the application is once more recommended to be granted by your professional planning officers, on the basis the scheme continues to comply with all relevant local and national planning policies and guidance. The committee report before you confirms all of those details. The development of 14 houses is below the threshold for any affordable housing provision, which is triggered by a scheme of 15 or more units, as you know, and the plots for the estate will be made available for self-build given the local demand for such schemes. That's all I wanted to say, Chair. Many thanks for your time this evening.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Garner. Does Mr. Cunningham wish to speak?
Yes, please, Chair.
Okay, you have 4 minutes, okay?
Thank you. Good evening, councillors. My name is David Cunningham. I'm the Director of Longton Developments Limited and also C4 Projects Limited. As a Longton resident since 1997, it is imperative that the scheme brought before you adds quality to the village and be properties that are in demand. We are not a developer that is putting profit before the village, as I personally am a long-term resident. This is evident by not only the number of plots we are in discussion with prior to any marketing taking place, but also the letters of support that have accompanied the application and have been submitted to the planning team. The scheme brought forward addresses a number of the concerns raised in April committee, including the level of community engagement. I personally did a letter drop to the neighbours, and our planning consultant has engaged with local residents. Amendments to the properties have been made since that engagement. We've moved the gables to the rear elevation facing Auburn Avenue and Reynard Close and replaced these with skylights. We've also reduced the height by nearly 800 millimetres. You'll notice the garages have also been spun through 90 degrees to put the low part of the roof to the garages towards the boundaries. The design of the properties are high quality, using high value materials including masonry, render and slate roofs with curtain walling and aluminium framed windows, pushing the benchmark of quality for the village. At this moment in time, Longton suffers from a gap in the high quality self-build executive homes, giving opportunities for families to tailor houses to individual needs, and whilst targeting a different demographic within the revised application, this is aimed to unlock houses within the village that are further down the chain, which rarely become available. Should any of the council have any questions, both Phil and I would be willing to answer any of them you may have. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Cunningham. Right, I will open up to committee on this one. Councillor Yates.
That's right. Thank you, Sonil. Taking a look at this development at first sight, I couldn't agree that this is a quality development. It's completely opposite than what I would consider myself for going onto a site such as this. So taking into account policy G7 as a whole, it is my opinion that this is an over-intensified development that is out of character with the surrounding area due to height, scale and massing, and I move refusal, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Yates. Councillor Flannery, please.
Thanks, Chair. I'm a bit frustrated sitting here tonight. When this decision was made back in April about the Mike, is all right? Yeah, it wasn't. The advice wasn't to just go and do a redesign, which you've done. So in one respect, I can see that obviously you've took on board comments from the committee, but we said this before, and we've said it numerous times. The committee don't live in the area. The residents who have spoken tonight live in the area, and they're the people who we asked you to consult with. And consultation means speak to them. You can do all the redesigns you want, but if you don't speak to the people you're going to be working with next to, who's going to have the biggest impact on, then it's worthless, really. So when I hear David originally coming on and very comprehensive and, reflecting on exactly what happened back in the previous meeting, and Leah and Tim over there did the same thing. It's about their well-being. It's about their what happens to them. They've got to live there. You are coming to do something which has an impact on their lives. So the idea that you had a scheme which has been reduced in numbers, and we said go and speak to them, because we didn't refuse it, as the chair said. We deferred it for you to speak to them, and to find out that you haven't spoke to them to the level and extent that you haven't done is really disappointing. So I am very frustrated, and I'm going to make a recommendation of deferment again, because you can't tick boxes and think, oh, they'll do it next time. When we say go and consult and speak to the residents, there are residents. We're here to do the best for them. We mean speak to the residents. There was an open door there for you to go and speak to them. Listening to them tonight, they want to speak to you. They want a development, but they want a right development. So however long it takes, I'm going to move again, deferment, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, the applicants have said they have consulted with the residents, and we weren't round that table, so we don't know. Is my answer to you, Councillor Flannery.
Well, I don't want to come back to your comments, but when I hear exasperated residents, Chair, saying they put a poster through and they maybe spoke to them once, that's not consultation. I'm in the game myself. I know how this works. Please, there's a harmony and there's an opportunity to work with them. I just don't understand why it doesn't happen. But anyway, there you go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't support this application or the previous application, and I still don't support this one tonight. I, at that particular time, asked for a more sympathetic application, and that this isn't the case tonight. And I will go along with Councillor Yates that will refuse it, Mr. Chairman, that it's not in keeping with the area, it's overlooking neighbours' properties and it's overbearing. And as I say, I go for refusal, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Sharples.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just make an observation based on the fact that I'm new to the committee? So I wasn't here in April. So what I'm picking up tonight is this is what I'm seeing for the first time. And what troubles me is the fact that there are things that could still be done to improve this application. There was a lot of passion from the people who oppose it. There's obviously a lot that the developers want to do to get it right. I'm sure they can, but I just don't feel at this point in time that the developers have quite got there. I think it's obviously people want the development, but it has to be right. And I think I would go back and say, look, you can do a bit more. I'd like to see these people coming in and saying, yeah, we're happy or we're happier, let's move on. But we're not there today. That's just my observation listening to it tonight. I would go for defer, please, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Sharples. Councillor Mrs. Green.
Yeah, I too wasn't keen on the last application and proposed, I think I was one of the proposers for deferment, I think, last time, if my memory is correct. I can't see anything of an improvement in this application. We definitely haven't been consulted. It doesn't sound like the residents have been consulted, satisfactorily anyway. It totally contravenes all G17 on the local plan, on every issue practically. So I think they need to go away and do a bit more homework and then perhaps come back with a better thing. But at the moment, I'll agree for refusal.
Okay, I think we'll find that when the initial application came before this committee in April, there was a block of flats involved that Councillor Hesketh was extremely averse to. And if that block of flats was not involved, he may have been in the mind of accepting the proposal for acceptance. But look, you're the committee, I've had a proposal for refusal from Councillor Yates, which has been seconded by Councillor Hesketh, and then I have had a proposal for deferment from Councillor Flannery, which has been seconded by Councillor Sharples. So we're going to have to go, if nobody else has got any other proposals. Councillor Smith, did you want to come in?
Certainly did, Chair. Yeah. I haven't got another proposal, but just to say that I would be voting against this application on the basis of policy G17. I think Councillor Yates said G7. It is in fact G17, and G17A in particular. And I'll read it out if necessary, Chair, because this exactly here's the whole thing. That the proposal does not have a detrimental impact on the existing building, neighbouring buildings or street scene by virtue of design, height, scale, orientation, plot density, massing, which is very important, proximity and the use of materials. Furthermore, the development should not cause harm to the neighbouring properties by leading to undue overlooking, overshadowing and have an overbearing effect. I have to say, Chair, this application ticks all those boxes, and G17 is, I think, the correct policy, and I will be voting against it on the basis of G17. With regard to what was said at previous meetings, you're quite right, Chair, that there was a proposal for refusal. There was another proposal for whatever it was, to defer the application. And, you know, the words there were that the application be deferred to allow the applicant to provide revised drawings in line with the discussions of the committee at the meeting and the residents. Now, those discussions I can see have obviously not taken place, otherwise we would not be receiving an application like this. It's said from the residents, the applications came in, the planning application came in before the consultation started. So what sort of ridiculous situation is that to have? I think the whole thing is ridiculous. And you were quite right. There was a block of flats in the way, causing a problem. That was the main source of the problem, which was based in almost somebody else's back garden. And maybe with a minor tinkering around the edges, moving those flats or building houses, I think we suggested building houses rather than flats, the application may very well have been accepted. In that case, it wasn't. We asked the applicant to go away and just revisit it. And not only is it revisited, and I take it that application, if it were to come forward again in a slightly different form, is still an outstanding because it has been deferred. I'm not quite sure about the legalities of that, and maybe one of the officers could advise us that that application would be still live if it came forward with a minor tinkering and a minor change with regard to blocks of flats and maybe putting houses rather than that. That may be an acceptable way forward, but this certainly isn't, and I will be voting most definitely against it, and certainly not for deferral on this occasion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Jonathan, do you have anything to add, or Stephen?
Well, the only thing I would say is, yes, they can keep putting in amended plans to address the issues while the application is still valid, so that is a way forward. The other thought I had is, given the dispute as to whether proper consultation has taken place, would it be a case of the officers actually chairing a meeting between the developer and the residents and then ensure that is properly done and all voices are heard, basically? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Councillor Yates, you wanted to come back in?
Thank you, Chair. I don't think deferment is an option really in this case. The developers have been out to consult with residents. They've rolled a coach and horses through our policies. I apologise if I said G7, I did mean G17. So our policy G17 covers it completely. So the applicant has not looked whatsoever at any of our policies. especially G17. So is he going to look if we give him more time again? I doubt it. I think if we defer it, we're just wasting committee time and making it, stalling it for residents and giving them the stress that they don't need. I think we should reject this and ask the developer to come back to us with an application that residents want and we could approve. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Yates. Councillor Moon.
Thank you, Chair. Well, when I read this paperwork, Chair, I was in the refusal camp, in that I looked at it and thought, you know, in essence, we had an issue with a flat block and the overbearing nature of that element of this scheme. And then I feel like I've come back to something. I'm kind of with Councillor Flannery. I come back to something and I think, what? I picked it up and I honestly thought, what's gone on here? To me, we've gone out of the frying pan into the fire. We've taken something where we have residents who are openly saying they are supportive of development. And I think you've got to hold on to that. They are supportive of development. Appreciate the agent shaking his head at me, but that's what I've heard the residents say this evening. They are supportive. I mean, I sat on this planning committee for a long time and I know what residents who are not supportive look like. So I think we're in a position where you've got a supportive group of residents. They want to work and sort this situation out. I, as a planning committee member, am looking at this and thinking, well, what I've just said. I think you've taken something that was almost there and taken it a million miles backwards, in my view. This is further backwards than we were. So I came thinking, not happy with this, and I would be supportive of refusing this application. But we need to move forward. Residents saying they want development, the applicant and the agent clearly want development. So I would be more minded to support colleagues who are suggesting we defer again. But, Chair, I feel like I would only want to do that if we got some sense this evening, because we've got the applicant and we've got the agent, that they were open to this. We've just had an offer from our planning officer to chair some sort of meeting, to bring people around the table, to bottom this out once and for all and bring back something that residents are going to come here and say to us, might not be perfect, but we'll go with this. We're comfortable with this and we'll go with this. And I think you've got a great opportunity here if we defer with that commitment. Because if we've not got that, then I kind of agree with Councillor Yates, previous speaker, we're going around in circles, Chair. We defer and we could go around this same thing, so I'd rather go refusal. So I'd like to know, through you, Chair, how open are the applicant and agent to a deferral that then requires a properly formulated discussion to bring back something that we're all happy with, if I'm allowed to ask that.
All right, thanks, Councillor Moon. Before I bring Councillor Hesketh and Councillor Watson in, could I ask the applicant, if we were minded to defer, would you be willing to sit round the table with our planning officers and the residents to discuss this application or not?
As the applicant, certainly will. Am I allowed to just state that we aren't three-storey facing Auburn Avenue? That's something that I think is being stated. We are in the roof space, so they are two-storey dwellings plus the roof space. Exactly the same arrangement as properties on Rymer Grove and Old School Lane as is. We do have gables on the front elevation, not facing Auburn Avenue and not facing Reynard Close. But we, based on community correspondence, we removed the gables from the rear elevations. So we certainly have done the community engagement. I think the final couple of points that the residents wanted was the removal of the skylights to the rear elevations, which could be done under permitted development rights, which is not something that we obviously want to do. We want to be completely open and transparent with residents. So yes, we would be willing to sit around the table.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Cunningham. To me, roof space makes it 3 stories. if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's usually a duck. However, Councillor Hesketh, would you like to come in?
It's just a comment in connection with the previous one, which was a reconfiguration of the flats and so forth. But tonight we have a totally different application. And we have to take this application as we see it before us. And that is why I gave my reasons previously for refusal. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Watson, and then we are going to go to some conclusion on this application.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the three-storey issue for me is it was overbearing with the flats because of the height and the location of them. You could easily have put those on the other side of the development and it would have been looking at a field for this moment, and obviously it would have had to been taken into consideration with any future building that's inevitably going to occur there, but at that stage that's already there. It still is overbearing on the houses behind, except there are now more. So I don't quite understand how that conclusion's been come to on this design. And obviously, it almost feels tokenistic the way that they have been spoken to the residents, because obviously the design was done before consultation was done. So it was always going to be just a revision on a design rather than looking at the design in general of the previous one, or potentially something being done completely differently. The sequence is odd for me. The way it's been dealt with isn't great. I'm not particularly keen on the fact that it's obviously 14 houses. There's no affordable housing there. It's a particular bugbear of mine, a bit of a concern that developments be done in patches where it means that you are just ducking under the need for as much social housing, and also, of course, it is avoiding SIL contributions as well. So those things really do concern me about this, the change in development. Part of the previous issue as well was the layout of the roads and so on, the way that they would have to be accessed from a bins perspective and rubbish collection perspective and so on. And again, whilst this is addressed by that, it was more of an idea of just making it more convenient, again, for the people in the affordable housing, rather than what's now being proposed where there is not any. Also, the fact that it's self-build, I feel that it would go on for potentially forever, because you could end up with when the person's building this house themselves, then putting revisions into the plans, it will keep coming back. You've got disruption by contractors coming onto the site potentially years afterwards. It's not going to be like a normal development where everything's being done at once and is organised centrally. It's going to be very disruptive for a significant period of time potentially. So yeah, I think those are really my concerns, and certainly I'd like to see those kind of issues being addressed when, assuming it goes to deferral, being discussed, and as I say, not necessarily just sticking with the current plan you've inserted, potentially going with even to quote Mr. Blair, a third way. So I think that's all I need to say for now.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Watson. The initial application in April was for 33 dwellings. 33. There would be affordable homes for new house seekers, and we're now reduced to 14. Well, you're the committee. I've had a proposal for refusal from Councillor Yates, which is seconded. Sorry, Councillor Smith, I'm closing the debate. We're going to go to the vote, which has been seconded by Councillor Hesketh. But then I have had an amendment from Councillor Flannery, which has been seconded by Councillor Sharples for deferral. So that Stephen Brown, our planning officer, and the applicant and the residents can sit round and thrash this out. So we are going to go to a vote on deferral to begin with. I am going to ask you to vote either in favour or against deferral. Councillor Donoghue.
Right, Chair. If the applicant does what they said they were going to do, I will go for deferral.
Councillor Flannery.
For.
Councillor Mrs Green.
Against.
Councillor Hancock.
For.
Councillor Hesker.
Yes.
Councillor Lomax.
For.
Councillor Moon.
For.
Councillor Sharples.
For.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Watson.
For.
Councillor Yates.
Against.
And I am for deferral. Let's sit round the table, speak to the residents and give them something that they're happy with. Geordie, can we have the outcome of the vote, please? Councillor Smith, I've heard enough. No.
Members have voted that the application in respect of the land east of Reynard Close, Longton, be deferred for consultation, including a meeting chaired by the applicant, the residents and the planning officers. And that was carried 8 for and 4 against.
Okay, thanks, Geordie. Stephen, you're happy to go forward with that and speak to the applicants and the residents to a happy conclusion, hopefully?
I am, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Ooh, right, okay. Agenda item number 7, land off Belfield Close, Penwortham. Can we have the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to a 1.9 hectare parcel of land to the south of Belfield Close in Penwortham. To the south of the site are plain fields of Moor Hay School. The site is allocated for housing under policy CC of the South Ribble Local Plan. Access to the development is via an extension of Belfield Close. A mixture of 1, 3 and 4 bed properties are proposed across 18 house types. Of the proposed 63 dwellings, 19 are to be affordable units. These are the proposed house types. The middle ones are the apartments, which are indistinguishable from semi-detached properties. This is the site viewed from Belfield Close, which is an existing cul-de-sac and from where the access is proposed. This is a view across the school from Belfield Close access. And this is a photo of the site when viewed from the Moor Hay School fields. There are no objections from any statutory consultees to the proposal. The application is policy compliant and it is recommended that members be minded to approve with the decision delegated to the Chair and Vice Chair upon the successful completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure public open space contribution and the on-site affordable housing. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that report, Chris. If you were here for item agenda number 6 that is now finished, if you'd wish to leave, you're quite welcome to. I'm very sorry, remiss of me. Okay, we're item number 7. Do we have any registered speakers? We do not have any registered speakers. Have you registered?
Yeah, we do have
you have.
Sorry, we do have the agent, yes.
It's the agent. So we don't have anybody in objection to the application. If you'd like to come and present.
Good evening. I'm speaking on behalf of Seddon Home, the applicant for this application. The application is proposing 63 new dwellings on a site which was allocated for housing as part of the South Ribble local plan, as you've heard. It was also assigned as a city deal site with an estimated yield of 60 dwellings. So the site forms an obvious extension to existing residential developments which are located to the north, east and westerly directions. The application site is currently fenced off with no public access available. The principle of development for housing is therefore wholly in line with the development plan. Of the 63 dwellings, 19 would be provided as affordable homes, with 74% being provided as social rented properties and pepper potted around the site. Of those affordable dwellings, 8 would be provided as ground floor units, making them accessible, which exceeds the neighbourhood plan policy requirement of 6. The density and design of the layout and landscaping has sought to reflect the character of the surrounding developments, and similarly the proposed materials and the design of dwellings also matches the local vernacular. The site is located in very close proximity to Central Park, and a significant contribution of over £160,000 has been committed for investment in green spaces, play areas and playing fields in the local area, and is to be secured by Section 106 agreement and is in addition to the SIL contributions. There are no technical objections to the proposals, with all consultees confirming the proposals are acceptable, subject to conditions. The access is to be taken from Belfield Close, as you've seen on the pictures, wide enough to provide a 5.5 metre wide access and pedestrian footways on both sides. Also, an energy statement was submitted with the application, and it confirms that a combination of both sustainable construction methods and solar PV panels will ensure carbon dioxide emissions are minimised and lead to site-wide emissions reductions of 15% over and above the building regulation standards. The applicant has also committed to the installation of EV charging facilities for each dwelling, which will assist with mitigating air quality impacts along with good practice construction measures, and all of those are addressed in the conditions and the air quality assessment. So the officer's report confirms that the separation distances are acceptable and there's no loss of amenity for adjoining occupiers. So the proposals are in line with the adopted development plan and will provide much needed affordable and accessible housing in a sustainable location.
Okay, thanks, Mr. O'Brien. I'm just going to come straight into committee. Councillor Moon.
Thanks, Chair. For me, this is how you do a planning application. And I have nothing more to say than that, and I am more than happy that we move approval in line with the officer recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second that. As I said, this is literally a view out of my window, but I'm more than happy with it. It seems well put together. I'm very happy with all the proposals around the panels and social housing and so on. Yeah, I'm happy to see it go ahead.
Councillor Flannery.
Just a couple of comments from me. It was allocated for 60 dwellings. I'm not wondering why we know it's a 63. That's the first one. If the agent wouldn't mind clarifying that at some point. But I'm going to say I'm a little frustrated again because I wanted people to be registered to speak. Because I'm looking at this and the area it's getting built. 63 dwellings. Average of 2 cars per dwelling. In an area which is already unbelievably congested. And Lancashire Highways has no comment to make. I know there's a design and access statement accompanying it, but as Councillor Moon said, it's a good application the way they've approached it. But I find it really frustrating that people are not banging on the doors, and they're not queuing up all around the building, having comments about this. So on the basis of that, it is what it is. So thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Flannery. I share your frustration with LCC. Never have comment to make, and we have to sit here, take into context the residents' arguments, and then our statutory consultees won't comment. Anyway, anyone else? Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look at this application and it's like a breath of fresh air. You look at it, it's policy compliant. It's a development that fits into the South Ribble Borough Council standards, and I congratulate the the agent and the developer for fetching this forward, and our officers for the outstanding report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Yates. Okay, I've had a proposal for approval from Councillor Moon, seconded by Councillor Watson. Do I have any other proposals before we go to the vote? No, okay. So this is for approval. Councillor Donoghue.
For, Chair.
Councillor Flannery.
For.
Councillor Mrs Green.
For.
Councillor Hancock.
For, Chair.
Councillor Hesketh. For. Councillor Lomax.
For.
Councillor Mrs Moon.
For.
Councillor Sharples. For. Councillor Smith. For. Councillor Watson.
For, Chair.
Councillor Yates. For. I am also in favour of the application. Jodie, can you give us the outcome of the vote, please?
Members have unanimously approved the application for the land of Belfield Close in Penwitham, and that the decision is delegated to the Director of Planning and Housing in consultation with Chair and Vice Chair of the Planning Committee upon successful completion of the legal agreement to secure the financial contribution towards public open space and on-site affordable housing.
Thanks for that, Jodie. I'm sat next to you and I can't hear you. But I'm just saying for future reference so that other committee members can hear. All right, we'll move on to item number 8. 176-178 Station Road, Bamber Bridge. I am the ward member for this application, but I do not have any pecuniary, prejudicial or any other interests. I'm just letting you all know. Janice, if you'd like to present the report, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this application has come before committee at the request of the leader due to concerns regarding highway matters. So the application relates to 176 to 178 Station Road, Bamber Bridge. The site's within the district centre, where the area is a mix of commercial and residential properties. Opposite is the Morrison's supermarket. Its associated car park it's understood to be a public car park with unfettered access. The site is also on a main bus route. So the application is for a change of use of the first floor to a HMO, housing multiple occupation. The ground floor is operated by Coral Bookmakers and that is to remain. So this is a floor plan to demonstrate the rooms to be provided. So there's 4 bedrooms, all with en-suites, and there's a communal kitchen. So this is the ground floor plan and demonstrates the bin store and cycle store areas. So you can just see those in this little yard area here. There's a rear alley between the application property and number 2 Clayton Street where the bin store can be accessed. That's just a view of it. So the property is on the corner of Clayton Street, which is a residential street. Residents have raised concerns over parking and that new residents will cause parking problems. So whilst there are a number of cars parking on Clayton Street already, it must be recognised that this area is highly sustainable in close proximity to a public car park, on a main bus route and within easy walking distance of a good range of amenities and such locations are where both policy G17 and F1 allow for a relaxation in the parking standards. So the application is recommended for approval subject to the imposition of conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Janice. Councillor Foster intimated he wished to speak on this application a couple of weeks ago, and I hope you'll excuse him, but from what's happened this morning, he didn't think he could speak on this application. Can I, just before I open up, the applicant's not here. There's nobody in objection. We've had letters of objection and we've had letters of objection from relatives of the objector. Is that correct? When you say unfettered parking, Are you talking about Morrison's, Janice?
Yeah, it's understood that Morrison's car park is a public car park.
Okay, I'll just wheel that back in. It's not a public car park at all. You're allowed 2 hours. 2 hours parking on Morrison's car park. If you actually park with your tyres on the white line, you get a ticket, 200 quid. If you aren't displaying a blue badge, even though you have one, 200 quid. And I'm sorry, it's not unfettered car parking 24/7. So, but apart from that, do you want to come back on that one?
I was advised that it was unfettered due to the earlier permissions when, because of the different changes in use, that Morrison's have tried to make it their own car park, but I understood it was to be a public car park from earlier agreements and permissions.
Okay, thanks, Janice. Just to advise committee members, it isn't unfettered parking. It isn't. Okay, so I will open this up to committee, Councillor Yates and then Councillor Hesketh.
Yeah, just for information, Chair, can we take it, because it was the ward councillor and you said it's not me, that it is Councillor Foster who's pulled this into committee?
It certainly wasn't myself, Councillor Yates, it was Councillor Foster.
I'm not a local councillor.
Well, it wasn't me.
Right.
It wasn't me, in the words of Shaggy. It wasn't me. It was Councillor Foster who is too upset to address the committee tonight. Sorry, Janice.
I did specify at the beginning of my my presentation that it was the leader that had called it to committee.
You did indeed. Councillor Moon.
It is just a query. I know we take the application as it's in front of me. I am more than aware of that, but I am very confused that there's no lounge. Very confused, genuinely. We've got 4 ensuite bedrooms and a kitchen. Now, I'm taking it because it's before us with approval for conditions. That is a perfectly legal housing position. But I'm confused, Chair, that there's no living space. There's sleeping space and a kitchen. I'm not against this, but it just seems an unusual way for somebody to develop a property. So I just wondered if Janice could help me understand a house of multiple occupation without a lounge.
Thanks, Councillor Moon. Councillor Lomax.
Yeah, I must admit, I thought they had to have a joint lounge somewhere that they could associate together. And of course, the parking issue as well, that there is no open car park round there. I just think it is a bit small, and the parking issues are also against it.
Yeah, once again, our consultee LCC have given absolutely nothing. So we're sat with this application in front of us and we need to decide what the outcome is. Councillor Flannery, did you want to come in? No, it's unusual. Councillor Yates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Even though we cannot park on the supermarket car park, there is plenty of adequate parking later on at night in the laybys that we've got. Unfortunately, I don't know whose good idea it was not to put bus pull-ins. All the traffic stops on Station Road when a bus stops, but there is laybys all the way down Station Road with adequate parking after the hours of around 4:30 to 5 o'clock. So I just wanted to add that. The other one is that I'm not saying which way I'm going to go, Chair, at this moment in time, but looking at it, when I first looked at it, I thought, are these student accommodations, usually 1 bedroom, with a toaster and a kettle and away you go. But I'll see what the committee has to say. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Yates. Councillor Hesketh.
Chairman, we arrived. Mr. Chairman, we have to cater for all different types of people within the borough. And providing that this has conditions on it and it's monitored, I will go along with approval, Mr. Chairman. I think it would be all right for certain sections of people.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. I mean, who's to say the residents are going to have cars?
Well, that's right. That's what I'm meaning.
Who?
Yeah.
It's not for us to say. It's for the people who inhabit the actual application site.
In actual fact, Mr. Chairman, a number of years ago, we did develop some, I think it was down Collins Road, which was specially for people that didn't have cars. So, you know, this could be a situation similar.
You're welcome, Councillor Hesketh. That was back in the day when we all had a horse and cart. Councillor Flannery. Councillor Flannery.
We don't have horse and carts, but apparently 40% of young people are not taking driving tests because they don't want cars, so good point.
Absolutely. Councillor Hesketh, Hancock, sorry.
I think John here is right. We have to cater for all types of people now. And as you say, we don't know whether they have cars or not. They might have bicycles. Who knows? Let's hope so. So I will be in favour of it, with conditions.
Councillor Yates, did you propose approval?
No, I'll second Councillor Hesketh though.
You're too late, Councillor Hancock's already done it. So I have a proposal of approval from Councillor Hesketh, seconded by Councillor Hancock. Do I have any other proposals? Councillor Flannery? Stop over and over your button then. Okay, so I have a proposal of approval from Councillor Hesketh, seconded by Councillor Hancock. Can we go to the vote, please? Councillor Donoghue.
I'm for that, Chair.
Councillor Flannery.
For.
Councillor Mrs Green.
For.
Councillor Hancock.
For.
Councillor Hesketh. For. Councillor Lomax.
For.
Councillor Mrs Moon.
For.
Councillor Sharples. For. Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Watson.
For approval, Chair.
Councillor Yates.
For.
And I am also in favour of the application. Jodie, if you could give us the outcome of the vote, please. Thank you.
Members have unanimously approved the planning application in respect of 176-178 Station Road, subject to conditions.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for that, Jodie. Ladies and gentlemen, I would request a comfort break of a couple of minutes or so, if you don't mind. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if we can, yeah, thanks. Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to agenda item number 9 this evening, 8 Hope Terrace, Lostock Hall. Janice, if you'd like to present, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this application relates to number 8 Hope Terrace, which is located within the Tardygate District Centre, where the area is a mix of mainly commercial premises, but there are some residential, and to the rear there's a large public car park. So the application proposes a change of use of an existing retail premises, which was operated by Age Concern, to a drinking establishment. So this is just a photograph of the property. It's going to be operated by Lostock Ale. So internally, an opening will be formed to link the application property with the adjacent Lostock Ale, and both premises will operate as one drinking establishment. The main front entrance in the ground floor will be closed off and boarded up, with the front entrance door being used for the first floor flat only. Sorry. So the door, sorry, where's my mouse gone? So this door, sorry, it's not moving. This door here will be blocked off, so the main entrance will just be used for the first floor, and the entrance between the two is here. So this is a view of the rear of the property. So the rear window will be removed and built up and finished in a render to match the existing. So as the first floor is residential apartment, Environmental Health have requested a condition requiring details of noise attenuation measures. So if you see condition 3 in the report, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thanks for the presentation, Janice. The ward members are Councillor Hughes, Morton, Trafford. They haven't registered to speak either in favour or objection. Do we have the applicant with us this evening? Would you like to speak, or are you quite happy just to? Yeah, if you'd like to come to the mic, press the speak button. And we've got 4 minutes, okay?
Thank you very much this evening for this opportunity. I know I've not put my name forward for speaking tonight, but my name is Ray McLaughlin from Lostock Ale. And 2 years ago, when I were, well, in January of last year, when I first came to put forward that me pub be put forward, you know, granted, in that space of time, it's gone from strength to strength. We've had Macmillan coffee mornings. We've had the deaf group use it on a Thursday morning, and it's been an absolute massive boost to Lostock Hall. It's been everything I ever wanted out of that micropubs. It's delivered. It's brought communities together. It's brought people out who wouldn't normally come out. So much so that it's outgrown itself in such a short period of time, given that it's with COVID and things like that. It's still bringing people out, and it's bringing people together. So much so that there are occasions when because of limited capacity, I'm having to turn people away. So through demand, I've took on an adjacent property, and that's just for seating, just to cope with the people who want to drink in micropub. So once that's been you know, subject to approval and it's been passed, I'd like to see move on and see how it develops. It's an open book in terms of how Gloucester Cale's going to benefit the community, both in not just a drinking establishment, but also for other occasions and events, what the additional premises will lend itself to. So, it's been good for the community. I've never had a bad word said about it, and it is delivering everything I wanted it to do. So thank you for this moment to say what I'm feeling from the heart. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Mr. McLaughlin. Can I just say, as a resident of South Ribble, I'll take my hat off to you. Okay, thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, I'd like to compliment the applicant and coming here tonight and making a passionate plea for what is an expansion of your business. The title Lostock Ale Company is brilliant, by the way, so I really like that. I don't drink that much myself, but I like what you're doing. But as Councillor Smith at the back here will also say, we've been involved in the business recovery process, and it's really great to hear small businesses, micro businesses, doing your bit for the community and for the economy. So I want to absolutely endorse what you're doing. So well done for coming tonight. Well done for your idea. Well done for your commitment. And I'm proposing approval. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Donoghue.
Right, thank you, Chair. It was nice to listen to the applicant there, and I feel it would be a good thing. So I'm going to.
Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll support this application. It will help the vitality of Gloucester Coal. It needs it. So I'll support it, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think just one of the anomalies of ward boundaries, I think you might find that it's actually in Farrington West there, but nevertheless, that's where the boundary is, in the middle of the cenotaph. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Sharples.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I can recall when I did my A-levels many moons ago, we did a little bit of a survey for, I think, 2 square miles from Bamber Bridge, how many pubs there were. There was something like pubs and clubs, so that's something like 38. Where have they all gone? We've just got micro pubs now. I jest. As chair of one of the neighbourhood hubs here, I really do applaud you. The community aspect, and I think it's fantastic. The fact that pubs, people go in and have a drink. These places, people go in the daytime, they can have a coffee. Elderly people can get together and have a natter. And I really am really fond of the idea of these micro pubs doing what you're doing. I'm definitely for approval.
Thanks, Councillor Sharples. Didn't realise they did A-levels when you were young. Do we have any other proposals apart from approval this evening? Okay, let's go to the vote then. Councillor Donoghue.
Yeah, approval, Chair.
Councillor Flannery.
Massive 4.
Councillor Mrs Green.
4.
Councillor Hancock.
4.
Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Lomax.
I agree with my youth worker, Colin, and I'm for it.
Councillor Mrs Moon.
4.
Councillor Sharples.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Watson.
For approval.
Councillor Yates.
4.
And I am also massively in favour of this approval. Geordie, if you can read out the vote, please.
Members have unanimously approved the application in respect of 8 Hope Terrace, Lockstock Hall, and that's approved with conditions.
Okay, thanks for that, Geordie. Thank you all for attending this evening. Once again, my condolences to Councillor Amelia's family, and good evening to you all. If you could leave individually, please, so we don't have any overcrowding. Thank you. Thank you very much.